What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Dylan once again, and today I'm here for a start of a brand new series. See, in sports, there's always going to be someone that's a little bit underappreciated compared to somebody else. In the days of Michael Jordan, there's some of our greatest players in the history of the game that just got a little bit overshadowed by the greatest of all time. Especially in the realm of football and baseball and even hockey, there are some players that are going to be underappreciated. So today starts episode 1 of the series where I highlight some of the greatest players in the history of the game to really not get appreciated as much as others. And today, the first episode is Shawn Kemp, one of my all-time favorites. So I hope you guys enjoy this series. If you want to suggest some names as some underrated players, go ahead and put that in the comments section. Subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. This is Shawn Kemp. Shawn Kemp is one of my favorite players of all time. This guy was so dynamic on the court and so much fun to watch that every single time a young me would watch a highlight reel of Shawn Kemp, it just got me so excited to go play basketball, which I wish I could say the same today. But Shawn Kemp was so crazy to watch and one of my favorite players to just go out and watch the highlight reel of. He even dunked on Alton Lister so badly that he kept pointing at him as he was on the ground. That shit was hilarious. But Shawn Kemp has kind of been forgotten in this realm of the NBA as some of the greatest power forwards of all time. And I really tried to figure out why that was the case. He was on a Seattle Supersonics team that in the mid-90s was quite dominant. But as I really looked into it, there was 3 key factors to why Shawn Kemp is not exactly remembered so much as one of the greatest of all time. 1, the upset performance of the 1993-1994 season. 2nd, the dominant era that he was in. And 3rd, weight problems / drugs. So we're going to go through Shawn Kemp's interesting career, what stat lines, go through the Denver Nuggets series, the NBA Finals he once made, and the aftermath of the Seattle Supersonics. It's an interesting story, it's a cautious story, and it really tells the tale of why Shawn Kemp is not exactly in the greatest discussion for power forwards. Shawn Kemp had a pretty good first 4 years in the NBA. 1989 to 1993, Kemp averaged 13.7 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.6 blocks, and 50% shooting from the field. But if we take out his rookie year, the stats are even more dominant, as he averaged 16.1 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.8 blocks, and still 50% shooting from the field. Him, along with Gary Payton, were ready to dominate the NBA, especially at the time period of 1993 to 1994. In the midst of the 1993 season, Michael Jordan decided to retire from the sport of basketball, a move that dominated headlines throughout the NBA, as another team was ready to make a run at the championship while Jordan was completely out of it. It actually got fans interested in what was going to happen next. What team was going to be ready to take an NBA title without MJ in the field? Well, many thought to believe that the Seattle Supersonics were on their way, as in 93 to 94, they ended out the season with the #1 record in the Western Conference. First round of the playoffs, they took on the Denver Nuggets as the clear odds-on favorite to win the series and move on to the NBA Finals later down the line. Well, things happen for a reason. The #1 seed Seattle Supersonics faced off against a 42-48 seed Denver Nuggets, which at the time, an 8 seed had never beaten a 1 seed in the current format of the NBA playoffs. Let's just say some pretty interesting things happened. It was all going so well for the Seattle Supersonics in the first two games. They had the home court advantage, and of course, they used it to their advantage as they won the first two games 106 to 82 and 97 to 87. They looked as dominant as ever. Kemp was making big plays, and everybody was ready to go as they were going to win another series in Seattle. In fact, watch this clip of Shawn Kemp I found that's pretty interesting right about now.
I heard the background, sweep, sweep, sweep. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah, we hear the sweep, but, in the playoffs, you got to take one game at a time. If we can go to Denver and sweep and get some rest, I think it'd be good for us.
Oh, the mighty have fallen since that comment. Game 3, Denver shockingly dominated Seattle 110 to 93 and had some advantage going into the final two games. In Game 4, they won in overtime 94 to 85, and people were looking at Denver as doing something that had never been done in the history of the NBA. Beat a number 1 seed as an 8th seed. So going into Game 5, the pressure was really not on Denver. It was all on Seattle. Could they get rid of the 8th seed Denver Nuggets? Well, no. Dikembe Mutombo blocked a shot from Shawn Kemp with a minute left, but he made the shot right after. Gary Hill put it in with a half second left, and we went into overtime. 30 seconds left, Dikembe Mutombo blocked Shawn Kemp, and one of the most iconic scenes in NBA history happened after the game as Dikembe Mutombo held the ball in his hand as Denver finally vanquished the Seattle Supersonics in 5 games. This shot right here of Dikembe Mutombo holding the basketball up as he had finally accomplished his dreams must have really hurt the Supersonics organization. They had the number 1 seed. Jordan was out of the NBA. This was their opportunity to make a legacy. And all of a sudden, it was vanquished by an 8 seed who barely won 42 games. I feel bad for Shawn Kemp. I mean, he's in the background when we talk about the best power forwards of all time, but he was in a pretty dominant era when it came to the realm of power forwards. At the time, you had guys like Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, and Dennis Rodman dominating the NBA, while guys like Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan were just about to come into the fold and make a name for themselves. Crazy. Shawn Kemp and the Seattle Supersonics had one more chance, though. They had an opportunity to take down the most dominant dynasty of the 1990s, trying to take down Michael Jordan's Bulls. He even did this in Game 4 against Dennis Rodman.
Of their second run, Kemp and lands on Rodman and is enjoying it.
Unfortunately for Kemp and the Supersonics, Michael Jordan was just too dominant, and he won his 4th NBA championship and pretty much taking down the Supersonics' dream of winning an NBA championship. Sorry for the long picture here. There's going to be a couple more, but this is taken from Wikipedia basically to give you some analysis and to help you follow along with what I'm saying. Kemp signed a contract extension with the Sonics in 1994. However, the CBA precluded any adjustment to that contract until October 1997. Basically, the max contract that he wanted was not available. They were not letting him get the contract. They were not letting him get the money. And it also didn't help out favors when the Sonics signed Jim McIlvaine, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, to a 7-year, $33.6 million contract. Kemp was not a fan of this and threatened to not play the 96-97 season and held out for 22 days in training camp. He did lead them to a 50-plus win season. However, they lost to the Houston Rockets in 7 and was traded to Cleveland next season. Now, this is one of the weirdest pit stops in Shawn Kemp's career. After the 97th season, he was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers and put up some pretty dominant stats, I would say. 18 points per game, 9.3 rebounds. The next season, 20.5, which is his career high, and 9.2 rebounds. Here's the thing, though. He was extremely overweight. When he reported to the 1998-1999 lockout season for the NBA, he weighed in at 285 pounds. But this is the kicker. That's the real kicker. According to Wayne Embry, the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers at the time, he actually weighed 315 pounds. According to a study by Business Insider in 2015, Brian Bulaga was the average offensive lineman height and weight at 6'5", 312 pounds, meaning Shawn Kemp in 2015 would have been the appropriate offensive lineman size. And this guy was a power forward in the NBA. Not exactly the brightest highlight of his career. You might be asking yourself why I didn't show a lot of clips from Cleveland or Portland or even Orlando for Shawn Kemp, and that's because it's a very depressing time to look at in Shawn Kemp's career. He might have scored the career high in Cleveland, I understand that, and then went to Portland, but it was riddled with problems at the time. He had a massive weight issue like we discussed, he had a cocaine problem, an alcohol problem, and eventually retired after the 2002-2003 season with Orlando. Pretty sad way to go out, and when Blazers Edge reports you as the second worst acquisition by the Portland Trail Blazers of all time, it's pretty sad. Although Shawn Kemp ended his career on not so great terms, he's still one of my favorite players of all time. The guy was explosive, he was exciting to watch, and overall just a lot of fun to see. Of course, we had the Chicago Bulls of the 1990s where Michael Jordan was leading them to 6 NBA championships. But the underdog story was quite fascinating, and watching a team like the Seattle Supersonics in the 1990s, well, just gave me a lot of entertainment. Of course, I wasn't around at that time, but going back through the history of the NBA and seeing some of these great teams and some of these great players, Shawn Kemp was the definition of underrated. One of my favorite players of all time. The guy had excitement and interesting gameplay. Shawn Kemp, you are one of a kind.